Welcome! Here's what I'll be using on today's 11 by 14 inch hardboard canvas. If you want to use the same papers and stencils I'm using, you can click on the PayHip link below to purchase my digital download files. This will give you instant access to my supply list, cut files, and printables. Of course, you don't need to purchase these. Feel free to use any stencils you already have, or you can paint or draw your own designs. I like to use a hardboard canvas for my art, as it will easily take anything I throw at it. Plus, I can just pop it into any standard size picture frame when I'm done. But you can use whatever kind of canvas or material base you prefer. So let's get started. I'm tearing my big print, handwritten, and my music sheet, taking off the edges and then tearing some strips. I'm going to kind of alternate them in the background. I should have used my whole body and head and traced them on the background so that I'd know exactly where to stop, but I didn't. I'm just going for it. And I'm going to start by decoupaging here the top and go down. I put some Mod Podge down, I smush, and then I put some more Mod Podge on top. I like to thin out my Mod Podge a little bit with just a little bit of water. I think it performs better when it's a little bit thinner. In a couple of seconds here, I'm going to grab a couple baby wipes, wad them up, and then I'm going to tamp all over my canvas to make everything the same texture and to remove any big globs of Mod Podge. Helps my canvas dry a little bit faster. Now on to my collage papers. I've got 3 spots of brown here that I'm going to make a darker brown, a reddish brown, and a lighter brown, as you're going to see. I like to mix everything with my popsicle stick, which you can tell I've used many times before. I wipe them off and let them dry, and they just keep going and going and going. Just want them to be in the same color family, but very different. Certainly not an exact science. I'm going to take my papers and I'm going to tear them into quarters, and then I'm going to separate them so that I have 4 piles, but they all have a different design. Now I'm going to put out my first set. I've got my water handy, my chip brush, and I'm going to wet all the papers down with water first. Got my baby wipe at the ready, always. And I'm going to dab on, I've on a very wet see-through coat of paint here. And then I'm going to take my baby wipe and remove some of that paint. Like I said, I want these to have a kind of a stained look. My second group. Now you can get new water for this. It's just not a big deal to me. They're all in the same family, and it just doesn't bother me to dip my brush back in that same water with what I'm doing here. Now I've decided I want these a little more brownish, a little more color in there. So I mixed up a little more color, and I'm going in now with my baby wipe and dabbing a little more color on there. Notice I'm working on a couple of sheets of wax paper hooked together with tape. This is my preferred method when I'm doing a very wet or something that needs to dry any paper that I'm working on. Because once it dries, the paper will lift right off of that. If it's wet, you'll tear it. Now going in with my dark brown. Anyways, I can just move these to another part of my studio, and once they're dry, I'm ready to rock and roll again. So I'm getting a little darker brown and tapping it in there like I did with the red. I'm not sure what happened to this original video clip, but it's missing. So I'm taking just a practice canvas and showing you the step, which is just drawing on my bull's head and the pole between the horns. Doesn't have to be perfect. I definitely want my stencil where the head and the body and the horns are going to go to be perfect. But I'm not worried about the marks because all this will be covered up. You could have your bull coming in from the right or the left. It just really doesn't matter. Now I'm going to do a little mix of bright yellow and an orangey yellow to put onto my background with a little bit of water. So I want it nice and thin so that you can see my pretty decoupage coming through. I'm going to tamp all around the bull and to make sure there's no brush strokes. Here's what I use for modeling paste, and I love this stuff. I learned this from Lindsay the Frugal Crafter years ago, and it is just great stuff. This is what I use for a dauber. I use a clothespin and a makeup sponge, and it is just the best thing I've ever found to work with. Now I'm getting out some of my modeling paste and I'm adding water to it because I want this to be really smooth and creamy, and we're going to stencil it on. I always have 2 paper towels when I'm stenciling paint or whatever so that I can wipe off my stencil in between using it so I don't drag product all over my canvas. Lining up my stencil here, and I'm just going to go in just a little bit at a time because I don't want to smush under my stencil and make a mess. I can always come back and add more. Holding my hand, hold it in place best I can. Not worried about being perfect, just pretty good. I'm going to smush it in between my paper towels. And then I'm going to hit it with my heat tool really quick to dry it so that I can continue on. I'm noticing that my paint is a little dark over my decoupage papers in the background, and I want them to show through a little bit better. So since I don't have any Mod Podge on top of this yet, I can take a baby wipe or a wet paper towel or wet cloth and remove a little bit more of that paint so that my papers will shine through. I'm making sure to line my stencil up different each time so my flowers don't all line up perfectly. I'm really having some trouble as I was recording this video, and I started to paint and forgot to turn the camera on. So that's why there's a little green already in the background. So I wiped it off the best I could with a baby wipe. And I'm going in again. So I'm just dipping my brush into my water and getting a little bit of paint and just kind of randomly going here and there. I originally made this canvas I was selling kits on Etsy. And so that's why you see me always trying, you can tell by my hands I'm talking to the camera. This video was originally like 2.5 hours long, step by step all the way through. So, and it's very boring if you're not actually doing it with me. So now I'm coming back into my orangey yellow. And what I also like about this process, you can go in and add more paint, remove paint. You can do it's really a forgiving process, and I want my different colors to kind of meld a little bit, bleed into each other. I know what I'm going for here. Not trying to be exact, just having fun. Now I'm going to go in with my, I don't know what that is. I think it's just a regular paper towel, and I'm just kind of dabbing everything around a little bit together. Now I'm going to get another baby wipe out and start taking a little paint away. I want to see my pretty papers back there, just a little bit. And we're back to some missing footage. So now I'm taking my dried collage papers and I'm tearing them into small pieces. I'm not worried about them being perfect. I just want them to be close in size. I don't want a huge size and a little tiny size if I can help it. Now I'm taking my medium round brush and I'm dabbing into my Mod Podge. Again, it's watered down a little bit. And I put it on there, and then I put a little bit more Mod Podge on top, making sure I've got plenty on the bottom and the top. And I'm going to do kind of section at a time here. I'm really talking with my hands. I like to go around my edges first, get everything kind of lined up because it takes a little bit longer than the rest of the collaging. I'm not worried about being perfect because we're going to put paint over all the edges. I'm trying to do a good mix of patterns and colors. It's nice to have a little pokey tool or awl or something to be able to lift these little pieces up a little easier. I don't want my Mod Podge to dry out during this part because it does take quite a while to do all these little pieces, so I put some out on my palette a little bit at a time. This took quite a while to get all this on here, and so I did it in stages. You do what you can, and you can always come back and do more. Now I'm going through, now that everything's dry, I can really see some spots that I missed. I'm going in and fixing those, putting a little bit more, some more on top till I get everything covered pretty good. I'm not worried about those little white edges. You'll see we're going to paint those in a little bit. Now I'm putting Mod Podge over the entire canvas to make sure everything is sealed good. And I'm going to come in with my baby wipes and tamp all over to get all the texture the same and to take out any big globs of Mod Podge. Now I'm going to start applying my modeling paste. No watering down this time. We want it full strength. I'm applying it very thick. Now I'm going to do the same thing with my face stencil. Nice thick layer. Because of this thick paste, now there's quite a bit of cleanup I've got to do, and I like to use a baby wipe, my fingers, and a toothpick comes in really handy here. Using my fingers to pinch off some of the taller edges before I go in with a little piece of sandpaper. Again, I'm not going for perfection, but I just want to do it pretty good. Taking off the overhang. Getting ready to do some detail painting. A couple different colors of brown so that I can define the edges. I'm not super worried about being perfect. I rarely am. I love painting on a Mod Podged background because when you make a mistake, it's just so easy while everything's wet or new to get a baby wipe and just make any corrections that you need to do. I'm going to go in here and there where I've got some white edges of my paper showing, and I'm just going to use a little bit of my different colors of brown to Just touch a little paint on there and blend them in. Using my fingers to smush it out a little bit so I don't have any globs. Now I'm starting to define the bull's ear, his left ear, and the rest of his face. Starting out with a thin line, but I'm going to darken it up here a little bit, thicken it up to really help define it better. I'm mixing a little brown into my white to make a more off-white for the horns. And I really want to get that edge because you can see how much it's sticking up there. Again, having that nice Mod Podge background, it's really easy to clean up mistakes. Coming up here, I'm going to go around the bull's head with the dark brown and my medium brown brush to add kind of a thick line to really make his head stand out a bit more. And I'm going to put some black on his eyes and nostrils and mouth, although I should have probably waited until after I did his, well, you'll see. I want to put just a little definition around his mouth, that whole area, nose and mouth, you know, like you see on a cow or a bull. And so I used a cut up bath sponge to add just a little bit of off-white, very lightly in there. And then I'm coming back and going over my nostrils and my mouth. Defining the eyes a little bit more. Finishing off those nostrils with a little bit more dark brown around the edges. Now I'm going to get a little bit more that light brown and a little bit of the off-white and just put a little bit of color into the horns so they look a little bit more natural. I don't know if you've ever seen a bull's horn up close, but they're not pretty and white. More of an ivory with some streaks of color in them. Making up a little gray to do the same thing. A little bit harsh, so I'm taking some water and blending it a little bit better with my finger. I think he looks pretty cute without putting any yarn on his pole between the horns, but I think I'm going to go ahead and put the yarn on just for something a little extra special. I'm going to cut a few strands of my yarn. I'm going to mark my pole with my stencil, and then I'm going to use my Beacon Fast Grab glue, which I love. And my pokey tool, I'm going to fold the yarn in half and then stick down the middle close to the next one, using my tool to help me out there. And so it goes pretty fast, especially when you speed it up. And then I'm going to cut his hair when it's all dry. And I think he's looking pretty stinking cute. Hey, thank you so much for joining me today. Remember, you can click on the PayHip link below the video to purchase my stencils and collage papers if you wish. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. I'd also love to hear from you if you want to leave me a comment. If you hit the bell button, YouTube will notify you each time I add a new video. Until next time.